Welcome to the milestone 25th Miami Jewish Film Festival, the world's largest festival of its kind. We want to thank all of our members, sponsors, community partners, all of you film lovers, and especially our presenting sponsor, the Center for the Advancement of Jewish Education, also known as SAGE, and the Greater Miami Jewish Federation for their continued support all of these years. My name is Jeannie Milgrom, and as a direct descendant of the Inquisition Jews of the Iberian Peninsula, I'm so excited to be moderating a virtual conversation with the three directors of the film Xueta Island, Dani Rotstein, Felipe Wolokita, and Ofer Laszewicki. So this is now premiering at this year's Jewish Festival. Thank you so much all for joining us. I'm so excited, and having you here today is just amazing. I understand that by now everyone has seen this movie and has enjoyed it, has been able to internalize it. So I have a series of questions that I'd like to ask, and hopefully these are the same questions that an audience would have had. So I want to ask all three of you the same question. And Dani, if you could start, I'm sure the audience would like to hear a little bit about yourselves. And can you tell us where you're from and how you got involved in making this film?
Yeah, with absolute pleasure. Thank you so much, Jeannie, for conducting the Q&A, and thank you to Miami Jewish Film Festival for having us and supporting our work. This is so exciting. My father is Moshe Rotstein, originally from Netanya in Israel, and his family originally was from Warsaw and Russia. And then my mother is from New York, American Jew, and her parents are German Jewish refugees who escaped the Holocaust and came to the United States. I was born and raised in New Jersey, United States. I have not been working on my Mallorquin accent this whole time. And I basically moved to Mallorca 7 years ago. I produced TV commercials for a living. So I got a job. I came to Mallorca to work with a company called Palma Pictures. And little by little, when I got here, I learned of the Jewish history that I knew nothing about of this island. And I got to meet the Jewish community members that are local here on the island as well. And yeah, I guess the last 7 years have just been this, exploring this incredible story. And then later on, I'm sure we'll talk about it, I was pleased to meet Felipe and Ofer, and we jumped on this project together. So that's how I got to where I am right now.
Wonderful. And I assume that behind you is one of the beautiful, charming streets of Mallorca.
Absolutely.
That is awesome. Beautiful. And Felipe, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, I'm nice to meet you, Jenny. Thanks for having me here. I'm from Brazil originally. I'm living in Aliyah. I came to Israel 14 years ago, study filmmaking in Tel Aviv University, and also work in a documentary and filming, editing, and producing TV pieces, documentary stories for many channels in South America and also Europe and Spain and Portugal. And I work with Ofer for a little bit when he was here in Israel. And then Ofer can tell a little bit how he invited me to join this project.
That would be nice. Thank you, Felipe. Ofer, tell us all about it.
Well, shalom, Jenny, and shalom to the Miami Jewish Film Festival, and thanks to all of you for having us here. And yes, I will explain this last part of how we all got along each other. Well, I was born in Israel, but my family moved to Spain. I grew up here in Barcelona. In 2016, I moved back to Tel Aviv, where I worked as a journalist and a cameraman with Felipe many years, as he told. And the story where everything began was actually I was writing an article about Limud Mallorca, which is the activity platform where Dani used to work and do things related to Judaism in Mallorca. I called him, I interviewed him and many other people. I wrote this article about their activities. And then it was kind of, I don't know, a strange situation. 1 week later, my partner, Georgina, along with our newborn baby, Noah, got along with Dani, Carla, and her newborn baby, Oren, on a trip on a plane from Barcelona to Tel Aviv. They started to talk to each other, and they discovered that Georgina was actually my partner, and that Ofer wrote about Limud Mallorca and all this. And we started to talk a little bit about this story of the Xuetas. Since then, me and Dani got like a frequent a relationship by phone and by Zoom. And after many conversations, we both decided that this story needs to be told on a documentary film. And it was something really fast because we hadn't that much time, because on September 2019, there were some important events related to the Jewish past and history of Mallorca. And that's why really quickly I talked with Felipe in Tel Aviv, and I convinced him like to come with me and Dani to Mallorca. And with some ideas and with some pre-production, let's say, we landed there September 2019, and well, and this movie is the result of all of that story.
This is amazing because as little has been done on the Inquisition on the Iberian Peninsula, much less has been done on Mallorca. So that's what I found so fascinating personally about this film, that you were able to, the three of you were able to capture the substance, the depth, the breadth, the emotion of what was going on in Mallorca, while we already knew more or less what was going on in the rest of the Iberian Peninsula. Ofer, can you give us an overview of what was the motivation for you, or for the three of you? What was the motivation to produce this film?
Actually, I think that we all of three, because of our background, we can say that we are really connected to everything related to Judaism. But in this particular case, we can say that Dani, for many, many years, he started to develop his own research, and he started to do guided tours about the story of the Xuetas. And me and Felipe, we were so impressed about all the things that he was explaining to us. And the motivation was that we feel that it was the right time to do that. We had like the whole menu, thanks to Dani, like all the story, all the facts, all the characters, all the locations, everything. And we needed to land there and do our best. And we felt like, me and Felipe, as a team that worked together in Israel, in working on many kind of stories, that we had like enough capability, like to build a team of two and land there with our own equipment and to record as many as we could. And I don't know, I think that at the beginning we didn't have really clear what will the outcome, how it will look like. Right. But this approach to the story, I think that we finally reached that because our knowledge of the issue and the belonging to the Jewish people also, because many of the characters told us like, okay, they came here to interview us in the past for many documentaries, but no one made this kind of approach. So, and we were really pleased to hear that from the characters.
Amazing, thank you. And Felipe, you're from Brazil originally, where the original crypto Jews went. They went to Recife, and were you able to, or did it happen for you that as you were filming this, you were envisioning the past of your own country and what the Brazilian crypto Jews and conversos that hit Brazil, that, you know, they were, let's say, suffering the same fate. Did that happen for you? Did you have that kind of duality going?
For sure, not only my country, but my family. My mother is converted to Judaism when she married my father, but researching about their roots, they also spelled from Portugal. My middle name is Marques. It's a Portuguese name. So also I felt connected with my own roots doing this film. So it was important for me. And I know that a lot of Brazilians have Jewish roots and they don't know about it. So for me, it's like an honor and a privilege to help to tell this story. And the Xuetas specifically, that's an unknown story for me and for many Jewish people around the world. They never heard of the word Xueta. So it's for me like revealing a treasure. No.
Well, I want you to know that in the 1600s, I was part of the Marques family in Portugal. So we're probably family. We should match up our DNA. Dani, let me know from your side, what was your motivation? I know that you arrived in Mallorca with your wife, and I don't know if you had your child yet, but were you expecting to be part of a Jewish community? Were you expecting, I mean, what was your motivation after you reached Mallorca?
So I'd lived in Madrid when I was in college. So I had known Spain and fell in love with Spain, to be honest, 20 years before that. So I always wanted to come back to the country, but I really was taking Mallorca as like a break, like I needed to get out of New York, and I was always growing up in a big Jewish community, big Jewish family. So I was pretty certain, Jeannie, that I was going to be the only Jew, touching down to Mallorca Island. And I could not have been more wrong, because not only was there's this fascinating Jewish history that I slowly learned over time, because as you'll realize, it's especially the Xuetas who now have returned to Judaism, like there's so much information out there that it's every time you go out to dinner, every time you have a Shabbat dinner with them, that's when you learn a new story, or a new story of their family comes out. And it's just, it just was so exciting to be a part of that. But also there's one synagogue here that was started by British Ashkenazi expats. And when I dropped into Mallorca, the community was kind of aging out. The people that were attending were in their elderly years. There was no children running around, no young families. You kind of felt like it was a little stale, like they were doing the same thing over and over again. They only met for Friday nights. I didn't feel that there was this community vibe where people were being invited over Shabbat dinners or into homes to celebrate holidays. None of that. So little by little, Carla, who also is on her own path, path of conversion and Judaism, we started doing these events and inviting people to our homes and doing holidays, et cetera. And so we organized, as Ofer said, this conference called Limud Mallorca, which is a worldwide thing, but it's open and inclusive, and it's all about learning. Let's talk about literature and music and dance. And that was the turning point, I think, where people realized, okay, Judaism doesn't have to be about Friday night tefillah and services only. It can be about other things as well. And so that's when we started to feel this kind of opening. And yeah, the motivation for this film was to really get to know what a lot of our protagonists were thinking, where they came from, where they want to go. Like, this was incredible work by Felipe and Ofer from a journalistic perspective, and Felipe with incredible cinematography and filming it. I wasn't in attendance to any of the films, the ones that I'm in. So it was very important that I wasn't there, because I didn't want to have them be careful to say something or not say something. I'm a part of this community as well. So it was important that they feel complete freedom, and here are two Israelis who are coming here to learn, tell us everything, and don't hold back. That was so important for us. That was one motivation. The other was to really document what we felt were historic moments, Jeannie. Like, this was the first time in 600 years that people with Xueta names were not only members of the community, but now leaders of the Jewish community, of the kind of expat foreign Jewish community that was just established. So the memorial that you see in the film, that was just put in a year before. No one had filmed that memorial had caught that video. Even there's been documentaries before done by local communities, institutions here. They are always took it in from a historic perspective, not a current day-to-day. What's happening in Mallorca now in 2019? That was the type of piece of work that we wanted to create to document what was happening at the time.
I think also, I've seen it, I travel a lot into the Caribbean islands researching. After I found my own lineage, I've taken it upon myself to research other communities and to talk about other communities. And I find that when they're in an island, the communities are on an island, they tend to subconsciously feel a separation from the rest of the world even. And I think that that could be why there was nothing about Mallorca until now. And you've certainly done an amazing work since you've been there. I mean, you have these hot air balloon sessions that are going all different Jewish communities. I think that you felt the need to also to document other Jewish communities, and your passion for this it exudes in everything that you do. So that's very interesting. Tell me, what was your favorite moment of the film?
So I'll jump in and say, I think the favorite point for me in the film was these very improvised moments, right? So in planning the film, we spoke many
conversations. By the way, Ofer, I think you said Zoom. We kind of spoke before Zoom. I think we were on Skype. Remember that? When we were talking before Zoom became a thing. And I told Ofer and Felipe, oh, this would be great he would be great and she would be wonderful to interview. And we got to go to this event. But while we were all here, by the way, we met in person for the first time when we were shooting this together. We had an idea. I wanted to explain to a friend of mine this crazy idea I had about a scavenger hunt, to how to get this story to the younger generations of Mallorca, history, how do you make it come alive? So I told Felipe and Ofer, hey, why don't you grab the cameras? I happen to be going tonight to talk to my friend Aaron, who's another filmmaker, to do a video to help come up with this scavenger hunt idea. And we came, we had a great time. We were filming and trying different things with shadows. And in the end, for me personally, it has become one of my favorite scenes because it puts the Jewish quarter at night, and we end up with animation, able to tell the story of the failed boat escape that happened also at night. So it's one of these things where it can only happen in a collaborative art form like filmmaking. You didn't plan something, but then it came out way better than you ever thought.
I understand. Ofer, what was your favorite part of the film?
I think that now, after seeing the film many times, working on the film for 2 years and now seeing it finished, I can say that probably the scene with Tony Pina, the chef, maybe because I'm also, among other things, I also like to cook and I've been a chef in the past. And I don't know, his character is so powerful. I think that with him, we made like a so kind of in-depth interview, and he's, a so powerful man and sincere and honest and everything. I don't know the whole story about the knife of his grandma, the traditions, everything that he explains, and of course this moment when he says why he get divorced and everything about his new life. I think that it's so impressive, and for me also as the guy who was interviewing him, I feel like an honor, like to be part of this interview that is recorded.
Right, that was a bigger than life scene, and he seems to be someone that is bigger than life.
Yeah, and probably also because of the place where it's filmed in Sawyer in rural Mallorca. It's so special, this place. I've never been there, despite that I lived in Barcelona most of my life, and Mallorca is so close. But for me, it was something really new, inspiring, and after that, I came back to Sawyer to visit Tony Pina on a recent holiday, and I enjoyed so much to be again with him, sit in the table, to pick up some fruits from his garden, and to review our talks, our interview, everything. For me, it was a life-changing experience.
That sounds amazing. Felipe, what about you?
For sure. It's funny because they took my two favorite moments. also, also the scene in the quarter at night, because it was something that we didn't thought before. When Dani told us about this, he told it he wanted to make not to be in the movie, just for something else. And I said to him, no, this is the movie. This is the movie. Everything, we're going outside. This is the movie for me. The camera is on. we need to shoot this. This was a really, and also the very personal and touching moment with Tony Pina, when he revealed. Also, I felt, okay, this is really personal. Another interview that was really, really important for me to understand all the complexity of the story was the interview with Abraham Barcelon, who was the former president of the community. Right. That helped me a lot to understand what are the conflict and the dilemmas that the people have to deal with. So also it's not like a super emotional scene, but it's important to understand where we are.
That's interesting. I will tell you my favorite part of the film, and I see a lot of these things. I'm immersed in this duality and this culture, but I actually cried at the scene that in the Jewish quarter that was like a wailing wall, as if it was used like a wailing wall. And that actually, I actually cried. That was a very moving scene. That was, not to say that something that makes me cry is my favorite, but you all are very attached to this, and I'm from the outside, let's say, and that just, took my heart and went like this. So the scenes in the Jewish quarter were just truly amazing. So what compelled you specifically, Felipe, to join this project and to be a part of this?
When Ofer told me about the story, he told me, so I have an idea to make a film in Mallorca, and I did, okay, I'm in. I want to join. This, after we talk about it, but seriously, I think it's touched in my family, in my roots. Is a story right. That I'm always think about identity, about what is being Jewish, who is part of the Jewish people, who is not part. Yes, I think the identity part is the stronger one for. In the strongest part is the identity, in my opinion, that really touched me in a personal
and
way.
Let me ask you, did you have to do any research for this film? And was any of this filmed outside of Mallorca?
Yes, we did the research Dani did all the research for the movie, and he passed us the story and the characters and the locations, like Ofer told before. And also we had a conversation with every character before to arrange it, to understand what's who they were and what's the story about. And then we came there, and this was I read about it a little bit, but it was really, really fast. We started like in August. We started to have our first conversation. In August, we did a crowdfunding project in Juicer, and in September we were there in Mallorca. So it was everything very, very, very fast.
And it was all filmed in Mallorca, not outside.
Yes, it's also something that we talked about, because you have Xuetas also in Israel, and you talk, maybe you can interview them here. But I think the essence of the film is the experience there in Mallorca, in the island, I think, in the community, not to make a movie about the Xueta question in the world. No, it's 10 days with the community to talk about the past, to see what's happening today, and to think about the future. That was that's what we have in mind.
Danny, you want to tell us a little bit about the research that you had to do to set this up, to be able to film?
I mean, it's kind of the best way to do research is living it, right? I lived the research. My research was spent going to once a month Shabbat dinners with some Xuetas who had recently returned to the community, and exactly what Felipe was mentioning, Nikolai Aguilo, whose name it has been for many decades now, Rav Nisan ben Abraham, who's one of two Xueta rabbis who lived in Israel, he would come with Shabbat Israel once a month to Mallorca, among other places in Spain, and do a Shabbat. And so I was kind of let in, and that was when I started to hear these incredible stories. And yeah, as Felipe and Ofer mentioned before, because I'm also one of the protagonists in the film, I also felt that, I had maintained very nice relationships with all of the other characters in the film. That's not to say, perhaps if I'm there in an interview, they may change what they were going to say. That was very important to us. But I think the research in the film was by living here in Mallorca and by being a part of this community and getting to see all of the different ways and backgrounds and basically the diversity, the incredible amount of Jewish diversity on a small island. This was another, I think, reason to make this film, to show that Judaism is not just one thing. It's not just this, it's so many other things. And that was interesting for us to get to show that on film.
That's great. Ofer, I have a question for you. So in the film, there is the saying, vivir la historia y no sufrirla, which means live that history, but don't suffer it. Did you find, as you went along in these interviews, did you find that most of the Xuetas feel this way, or are some still suffering it? Where does this come from?
I think that the characters interviewed in the movie nowadays, we can say that they don't suffer because of their condition of being Xueta nowadays, but it's a story that for sure they suffered most of their lives. We need to understand that the Xueta problem, let's say, wasn't solved at all. I mean, simply the democracy came in Spain in the latest 70s, and Mallorca, the island of Mallorca, opened up to the world, and how do you say, disuelto, this hatred kind of dissolved, but it still remained. And of course, Miquel Segura, Toni Piña, Chisca Valls, they suffered during their childhood, in school, in many professions, these baseless discriminations because of being descendants of crypto Jews, which is completely irrational. I will add one thing, that nowadays in Mallorca, we have thousands of people with Xueta surnames. And most of these people, even people that me and Felipe, during our days in Mallorca, we met there, and they told us that I am Bonin or I have this certain surname, but they don't have a clue. They don't know at all the story of their ancestors and what they go through and everything. And also adding one thing regarding our motivations, maybe it's not one motivation that I had before coming to Mallorca, but definitely it's something that came while working on the post-production and edition of the film, is the fact that in Spain, the country where I grew up as a Jew, an Israeli Jew in this case, this story of the Inquisition is completely untold. People in Spain in 2021 cannot make a difference between what is a Jew, what is an Israelite, what is Israel, they don't have a clue at all. And this story is so brutal. As you said, we focused only in Mallorca, which is an island, and this is a closed story. But of course, the rest of the Spanish Peninsula also had their drama and this prosecution with the Jews. And we need to, as we said, we explained in the movie, Mallorca came before all the anti-Semitism started, even before the decretos de la Inquisición.
Oh,
So,
absolutely. It started in the 900s. It's, you know, it's something that I speak all the time. This is my 4th Zoom this week, talking and talking and talking. I mean, I talk all the time and people are like, oh, I didn't know that existed. And I'm like, how is this possible? How is this possible with as much information? And there's a lot of people talking about this now. And there's, you know, films like this film, and it's right now talking about it. But the ignorance on this topic is vast. I had met at one of my conferences somebody that is a marketing person, and he said the Holocaust became huge because they put a number on it, 6 million, 6 million, 6 million. You need to put a number on this. That's, I don't want to sound like this, but really that's not my job. I'm not, you know, marketing. I'm just talking about it. And I think the fact that you all have made this film, it will bring it even more to life. I really hope that for the sake of the story, this film goes far and far and wide, really. Felipe, did you feel that the movie was made from a new Christian point of view, or from a Catholic point of view, or from a Jewish point of view?
I think from a Jewish point of view, I think it's a easy question because it's from, we tried like not just a Jewish point of view, for a foreigner point of view also, because someone who was discovering this history. Also, it's something that we thought about it during the shooting, that Dani is our like main character, but who is gonna tell us the story. So we think it's a Jewish point of view. I think he can, the Xueta and the new Christians and everyone can relate to the story, because the story, we give the opportunity to everyone to tell their story. But the main point of view, I think, in the movie is a Jewish point of view.
I also want to jump in, Jeannie, and also add that, you know, this was actually a really, I have to say that making the film with Felipe and Ofer was so much fun. I almost didn't want to end it. Remember that we had so many Zoom meetings about the edit and about the music. And for me, it was just, I loved talking and chewing and thinking about it. I didn't want it to end. One of the things that we had big discussions on, actually, between the three of us, was how much Yiddishkeit, how much Judaism did we want to put in? Because we always felt very strongly that this film is not supposed to be just seen by a Jewish audience. We really wanted it to be seen by many non-Jews, many people who perhaps don't like Jews, anti-Semites, or people who, you know, whatever. We really felt that this film should be consumed by everybody. And so there were moments where, if you'll notice, like we have like Hine Matov, the song in the background, or we have a scene that's showing Shabbat and this type of stuff. And I felt to be true to the Xueta history, we needed to have, you know, some Jewish parts, and Felipe and Ofer agreed as well. But it was always a nice discussion of how much or how little to put that in.
Yeah, and I think that I just want to clarify for our audience a couple of the terms, because there's a lot of terms many times thrown around. So the people that were in hiding during the Inquisition pretending to be Catholic, back in the day, we used to call them marranos in Spain and Portugal, and chuetas in Mallorca. We don't use the term marrano anymore because it literally means pig, and I, for one, don't like the term. And so I've worked very hard to remove it. So those hidden Jews were many times called crypto Jews or even conversos. I use with Felipe a term called New Christian. So in the Inquisition documents, the term New Christian was for somebody that had been Jewish and had converted to Catholicism, forcibly or because they wanted to, or whatever the term is. So there was a very big distinction in Inquisition documents as to who was an old Christian, meaning they were always Catholic, and to who was a new Christian. So the academics only use the term New Christian. So when you're reading up on this type of history and you see New Christian, you understand that these were actually Xuetas or crypto Jews in the Iberian Peninsula. I found it very fascinating. actually Rabbi Karelitz, very important from Israel, who deemed that anyone that had these roots in Mallorca would be automatically Jewish without having to go through, I mean, me finding 22 grandmothers and, 623 years of paper. But I want to tell you that when I did find the 22 grandmothers and 623 years of paper, I went to see Rabbi Karelitz because he had just given this decree to Mallorca. And I thought, if he did it for Mallorca, he's going to do it for me. But he actually told me no. Even though I had all the paper, he said, that's not what I do. That's not, but it is a rare, very rare thing that Rabbi Karelitz did out of Israel with Mallorca, stating that these were Jews. So I think that must have given everyone. Do people talk about that, Danny?
Yeah, absolutely. The fact that Rav Karelitz made that distinction for the few Xuetas, that's something that we should explain to the audience watching this now. It's like there are people with Xueta last names in Mallorca today, around 20,000 people. Now that's not to count how many people with Xueta last names that are outside of Mallorca that went to Puerto Rico or even Cuba or other places around the world. We're talking about a total of 12 to 15 people with Xueta last names that have converted or returned. Really, there's only 3 that have returned because they can show with their mother's line that they've always had a Xueta last name in their family tree. What I actually wanted to ask you, Jeannie, in all of your research and your investigation, do you know of another community out there in the world that had been forced to marry within the same group of family names and everyone treated them differently?
Only one, and it's in Monterrey, Mexico. It's a very special community. I do outreach to all of these communities. Right now, I work with 98 communities from Monterrey to Recife. And I teach and I talk and I provide them with things. I work with an organization, Kulanu, and I'm very involved. So Monterrey is the only one that I have seen that have continued to be married. They actually have Jewish artifacts, and they are a very, very special community. Much smaller than your community there of Chuetas, but this type of community nevertheless.
So that I think Ofer Felipe, we know where to go next. And
we also, of course, have Belmonte, which a lot has been written and documented and filmed, and with it all, a lot of people still don't know too much about Belmonte. I'm talking the general population, and I've been there many, many times. I've conducted Passover Seders there, but I would say that outside of Monterrey, Belmonte, Mallorca, these are the ones, the only ones that really intermarried in such a way.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I only have one point here that maybe we need to make a distinction, because when we talk about or we compare in this case with Monterrey, Mexico, the issue of the Xuetas, and actually it's a debate that we try to speak about on the movie, is if there's actually a sense of community among the Xuetas, because actually it isn't. I mean, there are some Xuetas, those who are on the film, that made this path of return or conversion to Judaism, but the vast majority of Xuetas, as I told before, they don't even know about their roots. So of course, there's no a thing called Xueta, Comunidad Xueta at all. So I think that it's important to make this
That is
distinction.
a good distinction, because in Monterrey, they did come together, these families and these descendants. And let's say everybody that is there is part of this. Some may be more engaged, some may be less engaged, but they feel that they are a community. They made a building, they got a rabbi, but it's few. In other words, we're talking about a planet, and we're talking about, three communities. Danny, it surprised me at one point that you said in the film that the Xueta community, you used the term the Xueta community and the Jewish community. Did you not feel that they are the same, even at this juncture? Are they still, I know Ofer just said that there's no really like Xueta community, but did you say that because you just don't feel that they are the same?
No, I didn't say that. That line
Okay.
came from the former president of the community,
Okay, sorry.
Abraham Barcelon, and that was a direct line from him, and it speaks volumes, because I truly believe, he was the president for many years here and did his best to keep this community alive. But being one person is very difficult, as you can imagine. No one should have to do that job by themselves. And so he was there when he helped a lot of the Xuetas that you see in the film who did their return or did their conversion to Judaism. But what ended up happening, there's, and I think it has to do with Mallorquins especially feel very Mallorquin, and so this is their island, and so you have opinions represented in the film very clearly, specifically about language. You saw definitely a debate going on between using the Catalan, which is another language from Spanish, official language here in Mallorca, being used in the synagogue, and versus other languages being used in the synagogue, specifically Hebrew or Spanish. And so I think when he says that line, it was, we wanted to welcome the Xuetas to come to our community, but at the same time, they felt apart. And that's what I think he was referencing, that we have this Jewish expat community. Now we have Xuetas who are returned and are apart, but they're still feeling separate. And that's what we really wanted to tackle in this film. It's like, what happens to a Jewish community when you have people who just really returned or converted to Judaism recently, didn't grow up in a Jewish community, but now they're the leaders of the Jewish community. We asked that question in our kind of docket. Are they the best people to continue and lead this community in the future when they are just really learning about it at the same time? It makes you, I don't have that answer. I think, well, I do. I think we should be doing it together. I mean, that's my approach. One big tent. We don't need to separate. We don't want the small community of Mallorca to have 3 synagogues. We're so small as it is,
Right.
And so that's the dream of finding. We all have different minchagim. We all have different traditions and backgrounds. And you sing a prayer this way, and I sing a prayer that way. But I think what we can be together on is our shared collective past. And I truly do believe that any Jew in the world can say that the Xueta history is part of theirs. And I think that any Xueta can say that the Holocaust story is part of theirs. So I think we do all have a shared history. And I think that's what we have to lean into.
And I see this separation all over Latin America. And I wasn't pinpointing to Mallorca, and I apologize that I got the quote wrong, but I do see that the Ashkenaz or the local community, whether they're Sephardim or Ashkenaz, they're not accepting the people that are returning. So I think that that's a lot of work that we as Jews have to resolve. Ofer, how hard was it for you to get the community to open up to you? Did the information just flow when you asked these questions, or maybe you and Felipe, or did you feel that they just wanted to get this off their chest?
No, it wasn't that easy, of course. And it was a huge challenge because let's say that we knew before with this broad explanation and constant conversations with Dani, we got the main points of the story. But as we can see when we watch the film, it's a really sensitive issue. And we're talking about people who are deeply connected, who share the same community, Chagim, Tefillot, and whatever. And I mean, it was like a kind of increasing thing because interview after interview, we were discovering new things going on, and these tensions, we can say, between these different sectors. And we wanted, of course, and personally, as a journalist, I understood that this is really important to tell. We didn't want to make a romantic story about the Xuetas and only talking about them oh, look, these poor people, what they suffered, and now this magic of returning to their ancestors' faith, because that's not the reality. So we try to make a really respectful approach. It wasn't easy because we didn't have much time like to get along with the characters, to be with them, to build enough confidence to talk about these points. It was really fast. I mean, with like Abraham Barchilon, as Felipe mentioned before, it was like knocking on his door. Hello, I'm Felipe, I'm Ofer, set the cameras and start filming. I mean,
Wow.
So it wasn't easy. Some characters opened themselves better or more than others, but we came with this approach of try to go deep. And then I can say that it's not only how was their attitude and what they decided to share with us, and it's also a process of after that, when we got all these hours of conversation and we had all these characters on the edition room, it was like a huge debate how to treat them and not make look like, okay, this is the bad guy and this is the good guy, and because there are different opinions, each of them brought us like different items, and we tried, as I said, to be really respectful with them, because it's
No, I think you all did a marvelous job, because I did see the respect coming forward. I assume, I don't know, are a lot of these people, some part of the family still Catholic and some have returned to Judaism, or generally is it a family returning?
No,
individuals.
They are. I mean, that's why on the movie, for example, we ask Mikel Segura plainly, like, okay, you are the only one, and you are 70-plus-year-old, and your children and grandchildren are not interested on this return. So
yeah, and you know, for people like the Xuetas there, and even for me, as you know, my mom died a few days ago, and I'm the only one that returned from my family, and my children, after all of this research, they don't want to have anything to do with it. My sister's Catholic. So I had to do a funeral for mom that was walking a tightrope with a Catholic blessing and a rabbi coming in and tying in everything. And you know, it was supposed to be a moment, and I assume that a lot of the Xuetas feel this as well. It was supposed to be a moment that was, so I was, you know, grieving and this and that, and I was worried about the tightrope, the Catholic deacon, the rabbi, and it was, you know, so we all, our descendants, we all live this duality, and it isn't simple. And I think that a lot of people pretend like it might be simple, but I can feel that this was a huge challenge for you, and you all really did magnificently. Felipe, I have a question for you. How were you able to, I'm sure you were part of the editing process, how were you able to edit out footage that, because I imagine you had hours and hours and hours of footage, days, weeks, and how were you able to edit out and not feel that you were taking out something that was super important?
When you came back from Mallorca, I edited the movie here at my home in Israel, together with Ofer, and we started to see the materials, to see the parts that were very strong. Ofer did the transcript. He writes everything that we shoot. So also writing this, you try to understand what's important, what's strong, and what is relevant to the story. And we had a help from Marta Hierro, who is the screenwriter of the movie. So after we tried a lot to try to understand, we give her the transcription and also our ideas, and he wrote a script for the scenes. So with the script was easier because I have also the main issues of the scene, and then was adding something that I or we three of us thought that was important to add to the scene. This is how was the process.
Great, thank you. We're going to be concluding soon. Are there any last minute ideas, things you want the audience to know? Anything, maybe Felipe from you, and we'll go around with all three of you.
I think I'm really happy just to say thank you for this opportunity to be showing the movie. I really wanted to be in the present, to be in the festival myself with the three of us, and to be a moment. But we are lucky that we have this moment to talk about it and to share our experience. Was really important for me. All this was really personal and really dedicated, and also the three of us. But I'm talking for myself. It was really important for me. It's it's the first feature film that I'm involved in like a director and director of photography and editor. So I'm really happy with the result and happy to be here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Felipe. Ofer, what about you?
Well, I will add something similar to Felipe, but also now that we are talking on Zoom, I will remind to our audience and to you, Jenny, that this film was made possible and was made via Zoom also because me and Felipe in Israel, and Dani and Marta and the rest of the team, animation, music, everything in Mallorca. So it was like an endless marathon via Zoom. And we must be honest, also a really tough and sometimes desperating process because it's a lot of work. We weren't a lot of people. And as Felipe told, we need like to invest a lot of effort and passion to bring out this final result. So I will say the same, that I feel really honored. For me, it's also my first feature documentary, and we are so proud and happy with the final result. And the same, I would love to be there with all of you, but maybe in the near future.
And I'm so excited, really, that this film is in Miami, because Miami is a hotbed for Latin America. And, you know, I know a lot of people with these roots in Miami. I don't go find them, they find me. But you're in an area that is so important for people to understand, to awaken to this information and to this reality. So I think you all did a marvelous job. And Dani, some last words here?
Sure. Well, first off, and I want to comment that all three of us obviously are with you in your grief and your mourning at the passing of your mother. And what you said woke something in me just now, because just last week, you know, I get a almost frantic phone call from Mikel Segura, who's in the film, saying, "Dani, you'll never believe, one of my dear friends from the rural town that I'm from, he just passed away. He's Xueta. And I just heard from his family that he left a note to his family that he wanted a Kaddish to be said for him." Now, this person never was interested in returning to Judaism, never even went to the synagogue, but he had obviously felt connected to the Jewish faith and to his Xueta history. So he asked me, you know, it's a Tuesday night, you know, can we get a Kaddish together? And so with the expat friends that I know and with his Xueta community, you know, we did come together to make sure that we had a minyan, so we could say Kaddish for him. And so I think that just goes to show that, you know, we don't know what the future is going to be like. And yes, right now, Mikel's children and grandchildren aren't interested, but maybe his great-grandchildren will be. And and I think it's important that, you know, films like these get made to tell these stories, because without documenting them, they will go away and people will not learn about them. So we're so honored to have been able to share this story with so many. And on a personal note, I lived in Miami for 7 years. I was on 12th Street and Ocean Drive in South Beach, and that's where I started my production chops, as they say. I production assisted on many commercials and shows. So this is such a huge treat and honor to be a part of the Miami Jewish Film Festival, a place that I called home for so long. And so honored to be a part of this project, and so honored to have you.
No, it has been really amazing to meet all of you. And I'm very excited, and I'm hoping that this will be watched by many, and you will go on to every Jewish film festival in the world with this. So I'd like to thank you, Dani Rotstein, Felipe Wolokita, and Ofer Laszewicki, and from the movie Xueta Island for joining us today. Once again, thank you to all of our members, sponsors, community partners, volunteers, and all of you film lovers, as well as the Center for the Advancement of Jewish Education, SAGE, and the Greater Miami Jewish Federation for participating in this milestone 25th Miami Jewish Film Festival. Thank you all so much. It's been an honor.
Toda raba.
Toda
Muchas
raba.
gracias.